If you enjoyed Moana 2, hey, that's good for you, more power to you, but I'm willing to bet that I'm not the only one out there that didn't really enjoy Moana 2 or ended up slightly disappointed. So here's all the things that annoyed me about Moana 2. So the first big thing for me is that Moana 2, for me, didn't really feel like it had a story that it wanted to tell. Like, it just felt like they made Moana 2 because Moana 1 was successful without really having a story. And if you don't have a story, the rest of the movie doesn't really work. And I think that problem becomes quite clear when we take a look at the timeline of this movie. So the entire movie is about 1 hour and 45 minutes long. So that's kind of what we're starting with. But now we remove the 1-minute intro and about 15 minutes of credits, and now we have the actual movie. And now if we remove all the singing parts, because let's be honest, in this movie, they didn't really advance the story. They were just kind of filler, but I'll get more into that later. But if we remove those, that's a big chunk that's lost because there was a lot of singing in this movie. And now if we cut it down further to really reduce the story that's actually happening to the main parts, we can cut away a big part of the intro where Moana is just on the island and figuring out what her mission is for this movie. But that's just where she finds out what her mission is. She's not really starting the mission yet. So that's another almost 30 minutes that we can cut away. And then we have this whole mission with the big clam and the coconut guys and this bad guy, or bad girl actually, that didn't even end up being the bad guy. So that's all extra. So it doesn't really have anything to do with the main story, the main mission. So we can cut that out. And then we can see that if we reduce the story to its main part and even keeping in the first and second attempt on reviving that island, the movie is suddenly a lot shorter. And this short movie that we're seeing right here in the timeline, that's the story that they decided to tell in this movie. And it's really not a lot. And so you can see how they had to stretch it out with jokes and filler missions to come to a full-length movie. And I think the main reason, the actual cause of why this story can be cut down so short and they had to fill so much, is because the story of a movie is really what happens. But what happens in a movie isn't the most important part. The most important part is, what is the movie about? And that's really where Moana 2 for me has the biggest downfall compared to Moana 1. Because if we look at Moana 1, you could also summarize the story really quickly. Like, it's about a girl that goes on an ocean adventure, learns to wayfind, and restores the heart of Te Fiti. Really short story. But if we look at what the first movie was about, we can see a really deep and powerful message, because the first movie is about a girl that lived on an island where she was expected to follow in her father's footsteps, although she had a totally different vision for the future. And instead of doing what everybody expected of her, she took a big risk, leading her on an adventure where she learned to wayfind, learned to navigate the sea, and eventually restored the heart of Te Fiti and saved her island from extinction. And the powerful part about that is really the girl that discovered herself, followed her own passion, her own vision, and then in the end managed to combine her vision of the future with the vision her father had for her. And that's really a powerful message, and that's what the movie is about. And the story that it tells is just to convey that message. And if we now take a look at what Moana 2 is about at its core, for me, it's really just about a girl that wants to find out if there are other people like her out there, and then goes on a mission where she manages to connect all her people. And that's really not that much. I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. I guess you could add that it's about a girl that learns that you have to work together to achieve your goal. And as she learns to work together with her friends, she manages to connect all her people. Like, maybe that's a bit better, but it's by far not as powerful of a theme than the first movie. And that core problem, I think, leads to some other issues in this movie, but then also the movie has some other issues on top of that. So I think one problem that comes from this core problem is the music, because if the movie isn't about a powerful core message, the music can't really have a powerful core message. Like, I remember in the first movie, there were several songs that had a really powerful message. Like, yes, they were catchy and nice and good songs by themselves, but they also had a good message. And in Moana 2, at least for me, that wasn't really the case. I didn't find the songs as catchy. Actually, like, I watched the movie yesterday and I couldn't really repeat a single line of those songs, and they didn't have a powerful core message, and really oftentimes just felt like a filler. And another problem this movie has, in my opinion, that I don't know if it's caused by the core problem or just makes the core problem worse, is that the mission that Moana ends up going on doesn't feel like that big of a challenge. Like, she's already looking for other people on other islands far away at the beginning of the movie, and then she just gets this mission assigned by some outside entity that now has her navigate to an island that's further away that could connect her people. So it's really like, it feels like she already had the abilities to achieve that goal in the beginning. And that's not really I enjoy to watch in a movie. Like, I want a mission that challenges the characters and they need to grow to achieve that mission. Like, that's what the whole journey is for. Like in Moana 1, Moana didn't know how to navigate the sea, she didn't know how to sail, so everything she learned throughout the movie, so on her journey to the island of Te Fiti, is what enabled her to actually restore the heart of Te Fiti in the end. But in Moana 2, it's like, yes, they needed to learn to work together, but it feels like they were all already capable of achieving that end goal at the beginning of their journey, and that's not satisfying. Like, Moana already knew how to sail, and the engineer already knew how to engineer a better boat. And they make a big deal out of the fact that Moana had to learn that sometimes you need to get lost to find your way, but for me, that's really not a powerful message. Like, did she really need to, like, if that is even something that you learn, like, I don't really see the value in that. But did she really need to learn that to come to the idea that she could dive in the water and touch the island in the water and that would break the curse? Like, it didn't feel like anything they experienced throughout their journey was necessary for them to achieve the final goal. And that's a big problem for me, because then the entire journey doesn't really have value. I want my characters to go on a journey and try to achieve a goal that at the beginning of the journey they're not capable of achieving, but throughout their journey they grow and develop and become powerful enough to actually achieve their goal. And then there's other little things in this movie, or I don't know if they're even little things, but things that also bother me, like the whole villain deal. Like, this movie doesn't really give the villain that curse a real, it doesn't personify it. Like, we never even see the villain, at least not until after the credits. So basically they're just fighting a cloud for all we know the entire movie. And then there's that whole fake villain problem with this woman who seems like she's the villain, but then ends up being really nice and not really important to the rest of the movie. So there are more little things like that I didn't really like in Moana 2, but I think I touched on the most important things. But just one last thing to top it all off. While they're telling this mediocre story that isn't that great for all the reasons that I just mentioned, what makes it even worse is that Moana 2 had a lot of potential to tell a better story, or even telling the same story just in a better way by, for example, not just giving her that mission, but making her find out about that mission and kind of puzzle together some pieces that she finds on another island, and then that whole mission where she ends up endangering her friends becomes her idea, and then that puts a lot more weight on her shoulders. Or they could tell a story where she tries to find other people like her, maybe does find other people like her, but then some of those people are evil. Like, that could have been an interesting story. So there are many routes you could have taken with these characters, and I think Disney really decided for one of the worst options with what they ended up going with. But as I said, it's just my opinion, and I obsessed over the bad things about this movie. As I said, overall, I think it was okay. It's just that I ended up being disappointed. But those are all my thoughts on Moana 2. Let me know if you enjoyed this movie, or if you also were disappointed and why. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.